The summer of 1945 carried a strange silence across the Pacific. It was the kind of silence that comes before a storm, heavy, breathless, and stretching across nations that had spent years drowning in fire, steel, and fear. The war between the United States and Japan had devoured millions of lives, turning oceans into graveyards and cities into smoking ruins. But by July, something had shifted. Japan was weakened, its military fractured, its navy shattered, and its skies haunted by the constant hum of American bombers. And yet, despite the devastation, Japan did not surrender. Pride, hope, fear. No one could tell which force was stronger. In Washington, a different kind of storm gathered behind closed doors. Scientists, generals, and leaders stood around polished tables, debating something the world had never seen before. For 3 years, hidden inside the Manhattan Project, thousands of minds had labored to build a weapon that defied the imagination, a bomb capable of tearing apart the fabric of reality itself. Some called it science. Others called it madness, but everyone knew one thing: if used, it would change the world forever. President Harry Truman received reports day after day, casualty predictions, invasion risks, estimates that an American ground assault on Japan could cost 1 million lives, maybe more. Japan's mainland defenses were unbroken, and the fighting spirit of its soldiers was legendary. The battles of Iwo Jima and Okinawa had revealed something chilling. Surrender was not in Japan's vocabulary. Civilians, soldiers, even children were being prepared to resist to the last breath. Truman's advisors warned that traditional warfare would drag on for months, maybe years, with unimaginable losses. And so, on a day marked by tension and uncertainty, Truman received a single coded message. The Trinity test was successful, the atomic bomb worked, the weapon was real, the impossible had become possible. The decision now rested on one man's shoulders. Across the ocean in Tokyo, Japanese leaders met in darkened rooms lit only by lanterns and cigarette smoke. Supplies were dwindling. Air raids had turned the capital into a labyrinth of ashes. Yet even as bombs fell from American planes, the government remained divided. Some pushed for peace, quietly hoping for diplomatic surrender. Others insisted on fighting to the end, believing honor meant death before defeat. Between these two forces stood Emperor Hirohito, a symbol of a nation brought to its knees, yet still unwilling to let go. But the Americans had already chosen their path. The order was signed, the target selected, and deep in the heat of the Pacific island of Tinian, a group of men prepared for a mission that would alter human history. The Enola Gay, a gleaming silver B-29 bomber, sat under guarded lights as mechanics performed final checks. Its pilot, Colonel Paul Tibbets, walked the length of the aircraft, his boots tapping softly against the tarmac. He had been briefed on what the bomb would do, its blast radius, its destructive power, its unimaginable heat. But no one, not even the scientists who built it, truly knew what would happen when the weapon met a living city. Still, orders were orders, and Tibbets, calm and committed, understood the weight of the mission. Inside a secure chamber, guarded like a treasure, rested the bomb itself, Little Boy. At first glance, it didn't look like the monster it truly was. It was simply a machine, wires, metal, and fuel, silent, still, but the energy trapped inside it was enough to rewrite the fate of nations. At 2:45 a.m. on August 6, 1945, the Enola Gay's engines roared to life. The ground shook as the massive aircraft lifted into the night sky, leaving behind the island that had served as its final staging ground. The crew sat in tense silence, each man lost in thought. Some whispered prayers, others stared into the darkness. No one spoke aloud what each man knew. Countless lives now hung in the balance. Hours passed as the aircraft crossed an ocean painted silver by moonlight. Below them lay Japan, unaware that a new era approached with every passing second. The chosen city, Hiroshima, leapt beneath the soft glow of morning. People prepared for their routines. Street vendors arranged their stalls. Children walked toward schools. Workers opened shop doors. Life moved calmly, unaware that the sky above them carried something that would end everything. At 8:09 a.m., the Enola Gay began its bombing run. The city below appeared peaceful, almost too peaceful for a place at war. Tibbets steadied the aircraft as Major Thomas Ferriby prepared the bomb, a final check. A breath held, a single switch flipped, and then little boy fell silently at first, slicing through the air with deadly purpose. Hiroshima's citizens saw a small speck drifting downward, glinting in the sunlight. Few paid attention. It looked like debris, another piece of metal from another air raid. Children pointed. Adults looked up idly. No one understood, no one could. At 8:15 a.m., the bomb reached the height for which it had been calibrated. Then, for the first time in human history, the world witnessed the birth of atomic fire. A flash brighter than anything the human eye had ever seen erupted across the sky. For an instant, it was as if a second sun had appeared over Hiroshima, white, hot, pure, and merciless. People close to the blast never even had time to scream. Their shadows were burned into walls, metal melted, stone cracked, the air itself ignited. The shockwave followed, ripping through the city with monstrous force. Buildings crumbled as if made of paper, bridges twisted, rivers boiled. Those who survived the first flash found themselves thrown across streets, slammed against debris, or engulfed in flames. The sound of the explosion rolled outward, a thunder beyond thunder, a roar that swallowed every other noise. Witnesses miles away saw a towering column of smoke rising, twisting into the shape of a giant mushroom. It climbed higher and higher, blotting out the sky, casting an eerie darkness over the land. Beneath it, Hiroshima became a wasteland. Fires roared through the ruins. People staggered through the streets, burned, blinded, broken, calling out for lost family. The horror was beyond anything imagined. Back aboard the Enola Gay, the crew watched in stunned silence as the mushroom cloud grew. No one spoke, no one moved. Even those who believed the mission was necessary felt something heavy settle inside their chests. They had followed orders, but what they had unleashed was unlike any weapon ever used before. For a moment the sky itself seemed ashamed. Back in Tokyo, messages crackled through radio lines. Reports were confused, frantic, impossible to believe. A single bomb had destroyed an entire city. Generals demanded clarification. Scientists insisted such a thing was impossible. But as new reports came, hospitals flattened, survivors burned beyond recognition, flames consuming everything reality could no longer be denied. The world had entered the atomic age. Yet even after the devastation of Hiroshima, Japan did not surrender. Some leaders clung to hope that it was a one-time weapon. Others refused to believe America could do it again. And so, as Japan hesitated, the United States prepared a second strike. 3 days later, on August 9th, the city of Nagasaki faced the same fate. Another bomb, another flash, another hell brought to Earth. By the time the fires died, the message was clear. Further resistance meant total annihilation. Finally, on August 15th, Emperor Hirohito addressed the nation in a trembling voice. It was the first time the Japanese people had ever heard him speak. He described the atomic bombs as weapons of a new and most cruel order, and declared that continuing the war would lead only to the destruction of Japan itself. His words marked the end of a conflict that had consumed the world, but victory did not bring joy, not truly, not to those who had seen what the atomic hour looked like. Not to the survivors wandering through ruins, not to the scientists who realized what their creation had done, not even to the soldiers who carried out the orders. The war was over, but the shadow of Hiroshima and Nagasaki would stretch across decades. The images of flattened cities, of burned skin, of empty landscapes, haunted the conscience of humanity. Nations raced to build their own bombs, fearing they would one day need them. Diplomats warned of a world where one mistake could end everything. The military understood that war had changed forever, and yet from the ashes came something else. a plea buried inside the memories of survivors, whispered across generations, never again. Today, the story of America's deadliest strike on Japan is not just a tale of war, strategy, or victory. It is a reminder of what happens when human conflict reaches its breaking point. It is a testament to the fragile line between peace and destruction, and it is a warning carved into the pages of history that the power to end worlds should never be taken lightly. The atomic hour came once. It reshaped nations, rewrote politics, and scarred humanity, but it also taught the world a lesson written in fire: that peace, however fragile, is worth more than the darkest weapons ever built. The bombs fell, the war ended, but the memory remains, a memory burned into the soul of the world, a memory that whispers through time. This is what happens when war reaches its final form. This is the cost. This is the atomic hour.